Sandra broke her silence. Keanu's eyes told the truth. The room was quiet, yet the silence felt heavy, like air before a storm. Sandra sat at the edge of a long wooden table, her hands resting still but her eyes carrying years of untold stories. For so long, she had smiled in front of cameras, laughed when people expected her to, and carried herself like the world's unshakable woman. But inside, there had always been a secret weight. That night, she could no longer keep it hidden. Keanu was seated across from her, not saying a word. His calm face, his steady posture, and most of all, his eyes. Those eyes told more than any spoken words could. They held a truth she both feared and longed to face. It was the kind of look that saw beyond masks, beyond jokes, beyond the protective walls she had built around herself. For a moment, she wanted to turn away, to push the silence aside with a light remark, the way she always did, but this time was different. She could feel the heaviness of the moment. It was as if the whole room, the whole world waited for her voice. "Keanu," she whispered, her voice trembling. It was the first time in years she had allowed herself to sound vulnerable. Her silence broke, and with it came a flood she could no longer hold back. He leaned forward slightly, not rushing, not interrupting. He had always been like this, never pressing her, never forcing her to speak before she was ready. And yet, his eyes, so steady and gentle, told her he already knew. "I have carried this for too long," Sandra continued, her words slow, each one heavy. "Everyone thinks I am strong, that I have it all under control. But the truth is, there were nights I cried alone, mornings I doubted myself, and days I wanted to give up. And I thought if I stayed quiet, if I pretended to be fine, maybe it would all disappear." Her voice cracked and she lowered her head, ashamed of letting her pain spill out. Keanu's eyes softened even more. He did not flinch at her brokenness. Instead, he seemed to absorb it, as if taking some of the weight into himself. He had always been the kind of man who did not need to speak loudly to be heard. His silence was not emptiness. It was strength. "You don't have to hide from me," he finally said, his tone quiet but certain. "I see you, Sandra. I see all of it. The laughter, the pain, the strength, and the fear. You don't have to carry it alone." His words made her chest tighten. For so long, she had longed for someone to say exactly that, to recognize her not as a flawless star, not as the strong woman everyone admired, but as a human being who sometimes needed someone to lean on. She lifted her head, and for the first time, she allowed herself to meet his gaze fully. What she saw there shook her. There was no pity, no judgment, only truth. His eyes reflected her pain, but also her worth, as if saying, "Yes, you are broken, but you are not less. Yes, you have fallen, but you are not weak." And in that moment, Sandra realized something she had been running from all her life. Strength was not about silence. It was not about carrying everything without complaint. True strength was in allowing someone to see the scars, in trusting someone enough to share the burden. Tears fell down her cheeks, but for once she did not hide them. Instead, she let them flow, and in every tear she felt a piece of her old armor fall away. Keanu did not move closer, did not rush to wipe her tears. He simply stayed, his presence steady, his eyes holding her together when she felt like falling apart. The silence returned. But this time it was different. It was not the silence of fear or suppression. It was the silence of understanding, of two souls speaking louder than words could. The night stretched on, yet neither of them felt the weight of time. Every second was charged with meaning, with a fragile yet powerful connection that only grew stronger the longer they sat together. Sandra finally exhaled, her chest loosening for the first time in years. "You always know," she said softly. Keanu gave the faintest smile, the kind of smile that carried warmth without taking away the gravity of the moment. Sometimes the eyes tell the truth before words ever can. Those words stayed with her, like a key unlocking doors she had kept closed for too long. She realized that her silence had not been broken in weakness, but in courage, and Keanu's eyes, steady and true, had been the mirror she needed to finally see herself clearly. Yet deep down, Sandra also knew this was only the beginning. The truth she had revealed was only a part of what lived inside her. There were still stories hidden, still secrets unspoken, still pain she had not dared to share. And as she looked at Keanu, she wondered if he was ready to hear it all, or if the truths waiting to be spoken would change everything between them forever. The next morning brought with it a strange calm, but also an uneasy tension. Sandra woke early, the memory of the night before still vivid in her mind. She replayed every word, every glance, every pause. She had broken her silence, confessed a part of herself she had guarded for years. And Keanu had listened. He had seen her. But now, as the sunlight filtered through the curtains, doubt crept in. Had she said too much? Had she burdened him with truths he did not need to carry? Sandra was a woman who had built her life on strength and grace, but now she felt exposed. She walked into the kitchen, her bare feet quiet against the wooden floor. Keanu was already there, standing by the counter, pouring 2 cups of coffee. He looked at her with the same steady calmness that had shaken her the night before. "Good morning," he said simply. She nodded, her throat dry. "Good morning." There was a pause as she took the cup he handed her. Their fingers brushed briefly, and the touch lingered in her chest longer than it should have. "Did you sleep?" Keanu asked. "Barely," Sandra admitted. "My mind kept running." He tilted his head slightly, studying her with quiet concern. "About last night?" She hesitated, her eyes lowering to the coffee in her hands. "Yes, I keep wondering if I should have stayed quiet. Maybe it was too much." Keanu leaned against the counter, his gaze never wavering. "Too much for who, me?" "Sandra, I told you. You don't have to hide from me." Her heart tightened. She wanted to believe him, yet a part of her was afraid. People often said they could handle the truth, but when faced with the full weight of it, many turned away. "There's more," she whispered, almost against her will. His brow furrowed slightly. "More?" She nodded. "What I said last night. That was just the surface. There are things I've never spoken out loud, things that shaped me, things I've carried like shadows. If I tell you, you might see me differently." Keanu's voice was calm but strong. "Maybe. But wouldn't it be better for me to see the real you instead of the version you hide?" Her breath caught. It was so simple, yet so powerful. He was right. But could she truly risk it? As they sat at the small table, the morning light warming their faces, Sandra felt the familiar tug of fear and the strange pull of trust battling inside her. "Do you remember years ago, when I disappeared for a while?" She began, her voice shaking. Keanu nodded slowly. "Yes, I didn't ask questions. I figured you needed space." She swallowed hard. "I wasn't just taking space. I was broken. I was in a place where I didn't know if I wanted to keep going. The world saw me smiling, but when I was alone, I was drowning. I thought if people knew, they would see me as weak. So I hid." Keanu's hands tightened around his cup, but his voice remained steady. "And yet you came back. You kept going." Her eyes glistened. "Only because someone reminded me of my worth. Not with words, not with speeches, just by being there. By looking at me like I wasn't broken. Do you know who that was, Keanu?" He looked at her, puzzled. "Who?" Her lips trembled into the faintest smile. "You." The silence that followed was thick with emotion. Keanu's eyes softened, but his jaw tightened, as if holding back the weight of his own feelings. "I didn't do anything," he said quietly. "You did everything," she replied. "Your kindness, your respect, the way you never judged me even when I disappeared. I saw how you looked at me, and in that, I found a reason to try again. I never told you, but you saved me." The words hit Keanu harder than she expected. For a man who had carried his own grief, his own silent battles, hearing that he had unknowingly pulled someone else from the edge shook him deeply. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "Sandra, if I helped you, it was because you were worth helping. I saw your strength even when you didn't. I still do." Her tears fell freely now, but they were not just of pain. They were of release. For the first time, the truth between them stood in the open, fragile yet unbreakable. But then, just as the warmth of the moment wrapped around them, something unexpected broke it. Sandra's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it and her expression changed instantly. Her face paled. Her hand trembled as she reached for the phone. Keanu noticed. "What is it?" She looked at the screen, then back at him, fear rising in her eyes. "It's from someone I never thought I'd hear from again." The tension thickened. Keanu leaned forward, concern etched across his face. "Who?" Sandra's lips parted, but the words caught in her throat. Her silence said more than any explanation could. In that moment, Keanu realized the truth she had shared was only the beginning. There was more to her story, something darker, something hidden so deeply it still had the power to shake her even now. And for the first time, he wondered, was he ready to face all of it? The phone in Sandra's hand buzzed again. Each vibration felt louder, heavier, as if the air itself carried the weight of it. Keanu's eyes never left her face. He could see the fear that had spread across her features, a fear unlike the vulnerability of last night. This was different. This was the look of someone facing a shadow from the past. "Answer it," Keanu said gently, though his voice carried strength. Sandra shook her head quickly, her fingers trembling around the phone. "I can't." "Not now. Who is it?" he asked again, softly but firmly. Her lips parted, but no words came. She lowered her gaze, her silence screaming louder than her voice ever could. Keanu didn't press further, but he reached across the table and placed his hand near hers. Not touching, not forcing, just steady, letting her know she wasn't alone. After a long pause, the phone stopped buzzing. The silence that followed was deafening. Sandra placed it face down on the table, her shoulders shaking as she drew a deep breath. "It's someone from before," she whispered. "Someone I thought I had left behind." Keanu leaned forward. "And now they're back." She nodded. Her throat tightened as memories rushed in. Memories she had buried so deeply that even speaking them out loud felt impossible. But Keanu's presence gave her courage, the same way it always had. "Years ago, before I disappeared, there was a part of my life no one knew about," Sandra began, her voice uneven. "I was surrounded by people, but I felt more alone than ever. There was someone who made me feel small, someone who used my silence against me. I stayed quiet because I thought it was easier, safer, but that silence almost destroyed me." Keanu's jaw clenched. His eyes, calm but burning with quiet fire, told her he understood more than she thought. "And now they're trying to come back into your life?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Yes, I don't know why. I don't know what they want. But just seeing their name, it pulled me right back to that place I fought so hard to escape." She covered her face with her hands, ashamed of the fear gripping her. "I thought I was past this. I thought I was stronger. But one message and it feels like I'm powerless again." Keanu didn't hesitate this time. He reached across and placed his hand over hers, firm but gentle. "Listen to me, Sandra. You are not powerless. You are not the same person you were back then. You broke free. You built yourself up again. And if they're trying to drag you back, you don't have to face it alone. Not this time." Her tears slipped through her fingers, but her heart steadied at his words. Keanu's voice carried no pity, no empty comfort, only truth, the kind she needed to hear. "But what if they try to take everything from me again?" she whispered. Keanu's eyes hardened, not with anger at her, but with resolve. "Then they'll have to go through me first." His words struck deep. Sandra looked up, her breath catching at the sheer conviction in his voice. He meant it. Not as a grand gesture, not as something to impress her, but as a promise. And in that moment, she realized something she had been too afraid to admit. Keanu wasn't just listening to her story. He was stepping into it, but the fear didn't fade so easily. Sandra turned the phone back over, her eyes fixed on the screen. The name glared back at her, dragging her into the past. "They know where I am," she whispered. Keanu's steady calm wavered for just a second, replaced by concern. "What do you mean? This isn't just a message. They wrote things only someone close could know. Things about last night, about me being here. Someone's been watching." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Keanu stood slowly, his calm composure shifting into something sharper. He looked around the room, his instincts on high alert. "You're safe here," he said firmly, though even he knew the situation was changing fast. Sandra gripped his hand tightly, her body trembling. "Keanu, what if this never ends? What if, no matter how much I try to move forward, my past keeps pulling me back?" He crouched beside her, his eyes level with hers, steady as ever. "Then we face it together, because sometimes the only way past the darkness is to stop running from it." Her heart pounded, fear and hope clashing inside her. For the first time, she believed she might not have to fight this battle alone. But as the phone buzzed again, the sound cut through the fragile moment like a blade. This time, Sandra didn't silence it. She picked it up, her fingers shaking. Keanu's hand covered hers, grounding her. Together they looked at the message, and what they read made both of their hearts stop. The words on the phone screen were short, but they cut deep. "You can't hide forever. I know the truth. I know what you told him." Sandra's breath caught, her hand tightening around the phone. Her eyes darted to Keanu, filled with fear. "How? How do they know?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "How could they know what I said last night? No one was here but us." Keanu's jaw tightened. His calm was steady, but beneath it was a spark of anger. "Someone's watching. Maybe too close. But we'll figure this out." Sandra shook her head, panic rising. "Keanu, you don't understand. This person. They always had a way of making me feel trapped. They knew how to use silence against me. I thought I escaped, but this message, it feels like they've already won." He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "Listen to me, Sandra. They want you to believe that. They want you to feel powerless, but you're not the same woman you were back then. You broke free once, and you have me now. You're not alone in this." She wanted to believe him, but the fear ran deep. Her mind spun with memories of nights she had stayed quiet to avoid confrontation, of the way her silence had been twisted into control. "What if this destroys everything I've built?" she asked, her voice breaking. Keanu placed his hand over hers, firm and grounding. "Then we stand and rebuild it again. Together. They can't take who you are, Sandra. They can't take your truth." His words gave her a flicker of strength, but before she could respond, the phone buzzed again. Another message appeared. "Meet me, or the world will hear what you've been hiding." Sandra's face drained of color. "They're threatening me. They want to use my past against me." Keanu read the message, his calm expression turning sharper. "It's blackmail. They want to keep you trapped in fear, but fear loses its power when you face it." Her chest tightened. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple," he admitted, "but it's necessary. If you keep hiding, they win. If you stand up, you take back control. I'll be with you every step." The way he said it, so steady and sure, made her heart ache. No one had ever offered to stand in the fire with her before, but doubt clawed at her. "What if the truth ruins how people see me?" Keanu leaned closer, his voice softer now. "The people who matter won't see you as broken. They'll see you as human, as strong, as real. You've carried this in silence for too long, Sandra. Maybe this is the moment to break free." Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. If the truth comes out, it could change everything. People may never look at me the same way." He paused, his gaze steady, his voice low but certain. "Then let them look. Because the truth doesn't make you weaker. It makes you stronger. And anyone who turns away doesn't deserve to stand beside you." Her tears fell freely now, but for the first time, they weren't just from fear. They carried a strange kind of relief. Yet even as Keanu's words wrapped around her like armor, the phone buzzed again. This time, the message wasn't a threat. It was a photo. Sandra's heart dropped as she opened it. Her hands trembled, her eyes widening in shock. Keanu leaned closer, his face hardening as he saw the image. It was a picture of the two of them from the night before. Sandra crying at the table, Keanu reaching for her hand. "Someone was here," she whispered in horror. "They were close enough to take this." Keanu's eyes darkened with quiet resolve. "Then it's not just about the past anymore. This is happening now, and we need to act." Sandra's fear turned into something else, something fiercer. For so long she had lived in silence, but now, with Keanu by her side, she felt a spark of defiance. "No more hiding," she whispered almost to herself. "No more silence." Keanu squeezed her hand, his eyes steady as ever. "Then we face this together. Whatever truth they think they can use against you, we turn it into your strength." But as Sandra nodded, her fear transforming into resolve, the phone buzzed one last time. The message read, "Tonight, 8 p.m., come alone. Or he finds out everything too." Sandra's breath caught. Her silence had finally broken, but now her past demanded a confrontation she could no longer avoid. The message glared at them both like a warning carved into stone. "Tonight, 8 p.m., come alone. Or he finds out everything too." Sandra's chest tightened as if the walls were closing in. For years she had carried the weight of silence, but now her past was not just knocking, it was demanding entry. She looked at Keanu, fear mixed with defiance in her eyes. "They want me to go alone. If you come, they'll use you against me. I can't risk that." Keanu shook his head firmly. "Sandra, listen. This isn't about just you anymore. If they're close enough to take that photo, then they're already too dangerous to face alone. You can't give them what they want." Her hands trembled as she clutched the phone. "But what choice do I have? If I don't go, they'll expose everything. Everything I've tried to hide." Keanu stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "Maybe it's time to stop hiding. Maybe it's time to take away their power." She stared at him, stunned. "You mean, tell the truth before they can?" He nodded slowly. "Yes. The truth belongs to you, not them. If you speak it first, they can't use it as a weapon anymore." The thought shook her to her core. She had always believed silence was her shield, but maybe it had only ever been her prison. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. Keanu's gaze softened, but his words carried strength. "You can, because I'll be standing right there with you. You've faced worse alone. Now you don't have to." A silence stretched between them, heavy but filled with meaning. Sandra's heart raced, torn between fear and courage. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting time, she made her choice. "I'll go, but not to give them what they want. I'll go to end this." No more silence. Keanu nodded, his eyes steady with resolve. "Then we face them together." The night air was sharp and cool when they arrived. The meeting place was an old abandoned theater on the edge of the city, its once grand doors now rusted and broken. Shadows stretched across the cracked pavement, and every sound echoed louder than it should. Sandra's hands trembled as she stood before the entrance. "This place feels like a trap," she whispered. Keanu scanned the area, his sharp instincts alert. "That's because it is. But traps can be broken." Inside, the air was heavy with dust and silence. The theater seats were torn, the stage dark and hollow. And in the center of that emptiness, a figure waited. Sandra froze. The face was one she had hoped never to see again. "You came," the figure said, their voice dripping with a false calm. Sandra's throat tightened, but she forced herself to speak. "Why now? After all these years?" The figure smiled coldly. "Because you built a life on silence, and silence makes people forget the truth. But I didn't forget. And now, everyone will know." Keanu stepped forward, his presence steady and protective. "If you think fear will break her, you're wrong." The figure's eyes narrowed. "And who are you to interfere? This isn't your story." Keanu's gaze sharpened, his voice like steel. "Maybe not. But I'm in it now, and she's not alone anymore." The figure smirked, pulling out their phone. "Then let's see how much you can handle the truth." On the screen, photos and recordings flashed. Images of Sandra from years ago, moments she had buried deep, words she had spoken in pain. Each one was a piece of her past, twisted to look like weakness. Sandra's heart pounded. This was the nightmare she had feared. The world seeing her not as strong, but broken. But then she felt Keanu's hand brush against hers, grounding her. His eyes locked on hers, silently saying what words could not. "You are more than this." Sandra stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. You think these pictures, these memories define me. But they don't. They're part of my story, yes. But they're not all of it. I'm not ashamed anymore, because the truth doesn't make me weak. It makes me human, the figure's smirk faltered. You really think anyone will respect you after this? Sandra lifted her chin, her tears shimmering in the dim light. The ones who truly respect me already do, and the ones who don't never mattered. Her voice rang out in the hollow theater, stronger than it had been in years. Keanu stepped beside her, his presence unshakable. You can't control her anymore. The silence is broken, and with it, your power. The figure's expression hardened, their grip on the phone tightening. But the moment had shifted. The fear that once held Sandra captive had lost its grip. She had spoken her truth, and nothing could take that back. Yet, just as Sandra felt the first wave of freedom wash over her, the figure leaned in and whispered words that froze her blood. You don't know the whole truth yet. And when you do, it won't just change how the world sees you, it will change how he sees you too. The theater went silent. Sandra's heart pounded in her chest. Keanu's eyes locked on hers, searching for answers. And in that instant, she realized the real battle had only just begun. The words hung in the air like a blade. You don't know the whole truth yet. And when you do, it won't just change how the world sees you. It will change how he sees you too. Sandra's body went cold. Her breath caught in her chest. She turned toward Keanu, and for the first time in this fight, she couldn't meet his eyes. Keanu, however, stayed steady. His voice was low, calm, but sharp as steel. What truth are you talking about? The figure stepped forward, shadows cutting across their face. Ask her. She knows. She's the one who's been hiding it all this time. Sandra shook her head, tears forming. No, not like this. Keanu placed a hand gently on her arm, grounding her. Sandra, whatever it is, tell me. Don't let them have power over you. Her lips trembled. Her mind spun back years, to nights filled with shame, choices she had buried so deep that even speaking them felt impossible. Keanu, if I tell you, you might see me differently, she whispered, her voice breaking. He leaned closer, his eyes steady, unshaken. Look at me. Nothing you say will change the respect I have for you. Nothing. But the figure laughed, their voice echoing through the hollow theater. That's what he says now. But wait until he hears. Wait until he knows you weren't just a victim. You were part of it. Sandra's legs weakened. She felt as if the floor itself might give way beneath her. Don't twist it, she shouted, her voice cracking with both fear and fury. I was trapped. I was scared. I made choices because I thought I had no other way. The figure smirked. Tell him then. Tell your precious truth. Keanu's hand remained firm on her arm. His voice, steady and soft, cut through the storm. Sandra, no more silence. Not for them, not for fear. Tell me, her tears spilled. She closed her eyes, gathering every ounce of courage. Years ago, she began, her voice shaking, I stayed close to them, not because I wanted to, but because I thought it was the only way to survive. They had power over me, and I thought if I obeyed, if I played along, I could protect myself. I even let the world think we were friends, when inside, I was breaking. Her chest heaved, every word dragging pain out of places she had locked away. And that's why I disappeared, because the shame of pretending, the shame of staying silent while they controlled me, it nearly destroyed me. I was so afraid of being judged, of people thinking I was weak or complicit, that I kept it buried. I told myself if I stayed quiet long enough it would fade away. Keanu's eyes softened, though his jaw was set with quiet fury. Not at her, but at the person who had twisted her life into silence. Sandra, he said, his voice heavy with compassion. You were surviving. That isn't weakness. That isn't guilt. That's resilience. No one who cares about you will ever see it any other way, the figure sneered. Sweet words, but the world won't see it like that. They'll see a star who hid the truth, who played along. Her reputation will crumble. Sandra turned toward them, tears streaking her face but her voice firming with every word. Then let it crumble. I'd rather stand in the open truth than live another day in silence." Her words filled the theater, echoing with a strength that stunned even her. Keanu squeezed her hand, his eyes shining with quiet pride. "That's the Sandra I see, the one who never gave up, even when the world thought she should." For the first time, Sandra felt the chains of her silence break. But before the relief could sink in, the figure stepped closer, their voice low and menacing. "You think this ends here? You think your truth protects you? No. Because there's one more secret, Sandra. One you don't even know I've kept. And when it comes out, it won't just touch you. It will tear him apart, too." Keanu's eyes narrowed, his calm composure now mixed with fire. "Enough games. If you have something to say, say it." The figure's smirk widened. "Very well. But be ready, because the truth isn't only hers, it's yours too." Sandra froze, her gaze snapping to Keanu. "Yours?" she whispered, fear tightening her chest. Keanu's face stayed calm, but his eyes flickered with something deeper, something even Sandra hadn't seen before. And in that moment, she realized the past wasn't the only story about to be revealed. The theater seemed to grow colder as the figure's words echoed in the silence. "The truth isn't only hers, it's yours too." Sandra turned to Keanu, her eyes wide, searching for answers. "What do they mean?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Keanu held her gaze, calm as always, but in his eyes she saw something he had hidden just as carefully as she had hidden her own pain. The figure stepped closer, their smirk sharp as a knife. "She thinks she knows you. She thinks your silence has only been for her. But you've carried secrets too, haven't you, Keanu?" Sandra's heart pounded. "Keanu, is it true?" For a long moment he didn't answer. He only looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then finally he spoke. "Yes, it's true." Sandra's breath caught. She had braced herself for judgment, for rejection. But not this. Keanu turned to her fully, his voice soft but steady. "I never told you because I didn't want my pain to become your burden. You were already carrying enough. But the truth is, I've been where you are. I've faced the same kind of darkness. People who tried to control me. People who thought silence was something they could use as a weapon. I know the weight of shame. I know what it means to survive by staying quiet." Sandra's tears spilled again, but this time they weren't from fear. They were from recognition, from the realization that he understood her in ways no one else could. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" she asked softly. Keanu's eyes glistened, though his voice remained calm. "Because I wanted you to see me as strong. I thought if you knew how much I had suffered, you would see me differently. I didn't realize that strength isn't in hiding the pain. It's in sharing it." The figure laughed harshly. "So here you are. Two broken people clinging to each other. You think your honesty will save you? No. The world doesn't respect truth. It respects power, and you have none." But Sandra shook her head, her voice ringing louder than the figure's venom. "No, you're wrong. Silence was your power. But now the silence is gone. And without it, you have nothing." She stepped forward, her shoulders steady, her voice clear. "You don't control me anymore. And you don't control him either. We choose the truth. We choose to stand in the open no matter how messy or painful it is, because truth is stronger than fear." Keanu moved beside her, his presence like an unshakable wall. "You tried to turn silence into chains, but together, we've turned it into freedom." The figure's smirk faltered, their eyes narrowing. For the first time, they seemed unsettled. Sandra raised her chin, her tears glistening in the dim light. "You can share the photos. You can share the recordings. Let the world hear my truth. I won't hide anymore, because my truth doesn't make me weak. It makes me human, and it makes me free." Keanu's eyes locked with hers, full of quiet pride. "And anyone who truly matters will see you for who you are, strong, resilient, and unbreakable." The figure's phone shook in their hand. Their smirk was gone. They had lost the battle, not because Sandra and Keanu destroyed the evidence, but because the evidence no longer held power. Sandra had taken it back. The two of them walked out of the abandoned theater side by side. The night air felt different now, lighter, freer. For years, Sandra had lived in silence, trapped by fear. But now, with Keanu beside her, she had spoken her truth. And instead of losing everything, she had gained something far greater. As they stood beneath the stars, Sandra turned to him. "You knew, didn't you? Last night when you looked at me, your eyes, they already knew my truth." Keanu gave a faint, gentle smile. Sometimes the eyes see what words can't. She leaned into him, her heart finally unburdened. "Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." He shook his head softly. "No, thank you for trusting me with the truth." They stood together in the quiet night, no longer afraid of silence, because silence was no longer their prison. It was their strength, and in the reflection of each other's eyes, they saw something far greater than pain. They saw truth. They saw resilience. They saw love that had survived the fire of silence and come out stronger. For the first time in years, Sandra breathed freely. The silence was broken, and in that breaking, she found herself whole again.